हरि करना।
Now it's time to look into type 1 and type 2 errors. So, in statistical testing, there are two types of errors. There are only two types of errors. One is type 1 error, second one is type 2 error. So, type 1 error, also known as false positive, very important. Many data scientists will, uh, go mad about these two errors. They'll have a huge amount of confusions. So that's the reason I'll put all these things here. So type 1 error is also known as false positive. Type 1 error or false positive occurs when we reject the null hypothesis when it is actually true. That's it. So that's why we say false positive. Type 1, it's actually true, it's actually positive, but you're rejecting it. It's a false positive. So when we reject the null hypothesis when it is actually true, so this means that we conclude that there is a significant effect or difference when there is not. So the probability of making a type 1 error is denoted by alpha, and it's typically set at, that's why I told you. So the depending upon the amount of chances that you want to have to reject the null hypothesis is what decides the type 1 error. Wait, hold on. I know you got confused, but still I'll explain. So now, so what is the just now we have learned it's significance level, correct? Significance level is nothing but alpha. So alpha we are taking 0.05. So what we said for alpha? Alpha we told that alpha is nothing but 5% chance of rejecting null hypothesis. Correct? Correct or not? Correct. Null hypothesis. Now, so you have only 5% chance of rejecting null hypothesis. Correct? Now, when we reject the null hypothesis when it is actually true, that's what is called type 1 error. Correct? But how much of percentage of chance you have to reject it? Only 5%. There ends the matter. So the level of significance is the one which decides the probability of making type 1 error, because that much amount of chance, that much percentage of chance we have to reject that null hypothesis. That's it. So the probability of making type 1 error is denoted by alpha and is typically set at 0.05 or 0.01. So the type 2 error. Now let's look into the type 2 error. That's the type 1 error. So type 2 error is also known as false negative. Occurs when we fail to reject the null hypothesis when it is actually false. So next one we have here. So type 2 error or false negative occurs when when we fail to reject the null hypothesis when it is actually false. Though it is false, you confirmed the null hypothesis. So how much percentage of chance that you have to confirm the null hypothesis? If your alpha level is 5%, you will have 95% of chances. There is a huge amount of false negative chance of type 2 error. So this means that we conclude that there is no significant effect or difference when there actually is. So the probability of making type 2 error is denoted by beta and is influenced by the sample size and effect size and alpha level. So the trade-off between type 1 and type 2 errors is important to consider in hypothesis testing. So lowering the significance level, if you lower the significance level, just a minute, yep, significance level alpha, if you lower it, if you reduce it, if you lower the significance level, then automatically, as lowering the significance level can reduce the probability of making a type 1 error. But there is an issue. Type 1 error but can increase the probability of making type 2 error. Conversely, increasing the significance level, conversely increasing the significance level increase the probability of making a type 1 error. So probability of making type 1 error increases, and type 2 decreases. Because the logic is very simple. If you increase the alpha level, so alpha will become 10%. Let's take 10% of alpha from 0.5. Alpha is equals to 10% or 0.10. Now what will happen? Nothing much. You will have a 10% of chance to reject the null hypothesis. Then obviously your false positive will go up to 10%, and obviously you will have 90% to confirm the null hypothesis. That means your type 2 error, that false negative, will reduce down to 90%. That's it. Pretty simple. So the balance between type 1 and type 2 type 1 and type 2 errors depends on the context of the research question, the consequences of making each type of error, and the desired level of confidence in the results. So researchers should carefully consider the trade-offs and select appropriate significance levels and sample sizes to make robust and accurate conclusions from the statistical analyses.